Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's a beautiful Tuesday. It's windy. Birds are chirping. But you know what? It's time for this Minnesota Vikings team to welcome in the Arizona Cardinals. And there are some things this week that we're going to keep an eye on. I've been looking at this roster again, and I've been making my checks and balances, getting ready for this Saturday kickoff at noon at US Bank Stadium. Because then after that, on the 29th, we're going to do a show at the State Fair that's going to have the roster. But here's the guys right now on defense that I think are locks, and then the spots that I think some guys can still learn in this last preseason game. We got that coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I want everybody to know this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On Sports, especially Locked On Sports Minnesota. Just make sure you check out FanDuel.com/locked on to make every moment more. But to get started, another way to do it is download that app on whatever app market you're using, and then it'll tell you what states qualify to be able to use it. We know Minnesota currently is not one, but for those Minnesotans, I've done it. When you go to Iowa, place a couple bets, like me, you can win a couple bets. So I'm looking forward to going to Iowa this fall again for softball because I get to put some early bets down on some football. But as I bring my producer to the show, Sam Ekstrom, as I talked about, yesterday we did the locks for the offense. So if you want to go back and watch yesterday's episode, it has some talk about the offense and who I think is going to make the team. I kind of was down to like 20-ish guys. You know, I feel like there's 5 or 6 spots still open on that offense. I feel like I feel like offensive tackle, so on and so forth. You know, receivers for me, I really think the top 3 are locked. The fourth being Jalen Naylor to me is a possible IR situation. But after that, Jalen Reagor, N'Keal Harry, Brandon Powell and Tristan Jackson are 4 fighting for 2. 4 players fighting for 2 spots, and I think it's open. Like I don't feel like Keenan McCardell really has said, "Hey, these are my guys." But you know what? We talked about that yesterday. Now it's time to talk about the defense, Sam. And as I was going through the defense during the game, also just when you look at the depth chart of what they have, I mean, all this goes into place. Players aren't dumb, coaches aren't dumb. When you set your depth chart, you kind of let guys know where they're at. But you do it for a reason. Like Ivan Pace Jr. is with the 3s. You do it because he's an undrafted rookie. So here's where – and Ivan Pace Jr. clearly is going to start week 1. I think he's going to be the week 1 starter against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If not the starter, he's going to get a ton of time splitting with Brian Asamoah, but I don't know if Brian Asamoah is going to be healthy. So I think Ivan Pace Jr. is the week 1 starter against the Buccaneers because we're not too far away, Sam. Like September is right around the corner. It's almost time for pumpkins. It's time to put the painted leaves out of your kids. It's time to start I saw Halloween candy. You know, like I freaked out the other day because my wife bought home Halloween candy. I forgot she's the dean of students at a high school, and so she just has candy in her office for when the students stop by because high school kids love candy. So I was like, wait a minute, why do we have bags of multiple, like, you know, the multi-bag thing from Costco? I'm like, Halloween is far away. And I was like, oh, wait, this is for school. I forgot. My kids freaked out too. They thought they could get some candy. And she's like, no, this is for school. This is for work. This is work candy, which I don't understand. And you have kids, Sam. I don't know why my wife left the candy on the counter. I'm like, if you're going to buy candy, you bring it in the house and then you set it to the side so the kids can't see it. But again, I'm Ron
behind lock and key.
Correct. I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. This is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. And we're going to jump into the locks on defense. I'm going to give you my early starters. We already know who they are, so I don't even need to go through it. But for those that are new to the Minnesota Vikings and just tuning in maybe for the first time to the Ron Johnson Show, thank you for joining us. Those watching on YouTube, hey, how's it going? All the Amazon Fire and Roku people that continue to watch us on there, thank you. And then the Sirius XM family, we thank you guys as well for downloading the app. I got Danielle Hunter, Dean Lowry, Kyrus Tonga, Harrison Phillips, Marcus Davenport as Agent Zero. And then you got Jordan Hicks, Brian Asamoah, Caleb Evans, Byron Murphy Jr., Nick Harrison Smith, and Cam Bynum. Those are your 11 starters. I'm going to throw Ivan Pace from the threes, from the 3 column, Sam. I'm going to throw Ivan Pace Jr. up in there. That is now 12. I also think Jawan Williams is fine. I think Mekhi Blackman is fine. I think Josh Metellus and Lewis Cine are fine. Then I'm going to go to Troy Dye. I then go to Ross Blacklock, but that's a maybe for me. TJ Smith as well as a maybe. But here's the thing about TJ Smith and Calvin Avery. Those are the only 2 nose tackles behind Kyrus Tonga. So unless they're going to bring a guy in, which we know they can, they brought Ross Blacklock in last year late. I think one of those guys, and I'm leaning towards TJ Smith. You got Jonathan Bullard. You got Patrick Jones II. After that, I'm not going to pick the rest, but here's the guys I kind of hope. I hope Aseze Atamewu is in that lock, but he's not. He has to earn a spot. He's with the 3s right now. That's a far way back.
Yeah.
So he has to earn his spot again for another year. He has to fight his way back onto this roster. I just went through 11. I got 12, 13, 14. I got Andrew Booth Jr. on here. I'm going to be honest. I think he's on here. He's done enough at this point. Now, again, stranger things have happened. Like I said, Troy Dye over Troy Reeder. Jonathan Bullard, Patrick Jones II. Aseze Atamewu. I think he is a guy that has to earn his spot. From that 3rd row column, I got Mekhi Blackman. I got Jaquelin Roy. So I got 11. I got 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Whoa. I got like 22 locks, Sam, on this defense. I think they're only going to be able to keep 25. Usually defense goes heavier than offense because you have more special teams guys. This was just my list from the game because I kind of wanted to get nailed down a little bit for the post-game show. But after looking at it now, I'm not sure I have this many locks. I just kind of checked off what I thought. Like DJ Wonnum, I think Patrick Jones, I think both are fine. Jonathan Bullard, he might be a casualty of Jaquelin Roy. Like Jaquelin Roy is a guy they drafted. Jonathan Bullard might get the axe because of that. So, that's a guy I had just checked off to say, here's 22 right now, I think. But now after re-looking at this, sleeping on it for a couple days, Bullard might be a cap casualty of Jaquelin Roy. One, if they're the same, you take the rookie. That's the thing that sucks about the NFL. If they're the same, they lean towards the younger guy because they feel like, well, look, this guy just got here and he's at the same level of guy that's been in the league for a couple years. When that happens, they kind of say, well, let's go with the youth. Like, we can teach this guy how to get better. This guy, we might have hit his ceiling already. I think, like I said, I think DJ Wonnum and Patrick Jones have done enough. Luigi Villain, he may or may not be a casualty of Tanner Vallejo. If you think about, now one, he's a 3rd outside linebacker. Do you need a 3rd? Or would you rather have a special teams guy in Vallejo who's a special teams pro? So they're there. I don't have him as a lock. I just know they brought him in. But that's where I kind of was on mine, Sam. I don't know when you first looked at this defensive roster, what jumped out to you as far as like guys being locked in, or what do you think about the ones I picked so far?
Yep. So interior defensive line to me is the toughest position because I think you've got a lot of guys that are kind of on equal footing. You've got Jaquelin Roy, Sezi Otomewo, TJ Smith, Ross Blacklock, who they traded for. I think they're all kind of similar status.
Yeah.
I don't know how many they're keeping on the interior line, if it's 5, if it's 6. It obviously gets adjusted based on how many edge rushers they keep, how many linebackers they keep. It's all a big puzzle. But that to me is the most complex one. Linebacker interior feels kind of cut and dried to me. I think it comes down to Troy Dye and Troy Reeder. And I think Dye has the advantage. I think you got that right.
Does.
What do you think about actually, I don't want to spoil this because this is coming in the Daily 3. We're going to talk about Najee Thompson in the Daily 3 because Najee Thompson, the special teams ace, could complicate things. But let's save that. Save that for the Daily 3.
Yeah. And when you look at, this list, you brought up a good point about interior line. Let me explain this to the people as far as the Vikings, the way they're labeling it, because the way they label it matters more than what we think. And maybe this could be an error. And I this is something I probably need to ask Coach Chris Rump because he's on our show. These are his guys. Because as of the way the Vikings name it, and again, this is Brian Flores. Normally what you have is a nose tackle, a D tackle, and then a DN. They have it as nose tackle, DN, and then outside linebacker. Now, I don't know if this is just an error because we know Carly Bonk for the Vikings. Her team puts this together. So there's a chance, because if you go over to the Titans side, they call it D end nose tackle, D tackle. And then Jeffrey Simmons was the D tackle, Tart was the nose tackle, and then Danico Autry was the D end. I think this might be a typo, and it's D end nose tackle, D tackle. And the reason I say that, Sam, is when you talk about interior within a 3-4, your nose tackle, D tackle are the ones that you would consider the interior. And so from there, like, this is where I go with this. From there, Kyrus Tonga, Harrison Phillips are 1 and 2. You got Ross Blacklock as 3. Do you need a 4th? Because if you do, TJ Smith is technically just a nose tackle, whereas like a Harrison Phillips can kick down into a nose tackle spot, and a Sezi can come in as a D tackle or a D end because he is versatile. So that's why within this Flores defense too, we've been looking at old school, like we need big bodies in there for every spot. Maybe Flores is like, look, I need guys that can move around within my defense. If you look at like where Marcus Davenport lines up sometimes over the A gap and in the B gap as an interior lineman, but he's actually just a stand-up linebacker trying to confuse and create havoc. Asezi is a different, because he's a true DN from college, but now within a 3-4, 3-4, he has to play more of like a 5 technique, 3 technique. And so can he do that? You know, is TJ Smith or Calvin Avery or Jaquelin Roy? Like, how do they view Dean Lowry and Jonathan Bullard versus Jaquelin Roy? So it's all about how they lay. I'm guessing this DN as Harrison Phillips is a typo that should be D tackle. Because you would have D tackle as Harrison Phillips, Ross Blaylock, and Asezi. But see, Asezi to me would go behind Dean Lowry. And that's where I think maybe he gains a little bit of an edge, because he's a guy they can move around and put in a different spot. Again, Danielle Hunter, Caleb Evans, it comes down to health. You know, when you think about a Caleb Evans, it's health. Like, if he doesn't go, or if Andrew Booth, same thing. Like, does a Caleb Evans health push Andrew Booth up? Because I want to see this week too, is a Caleb Evans healthy? Because he took a huge hit from Josh Metellus in practice. And then that was the question, was how is his head? Because he was a little, like, he was a little dazed. Like, let's be honest. And this dude had 3 concussions last year. So the minute I saw that big head happen, I was like, oh, crap, not again. Like, don't give this guy another concussion. Because, I mean, 4 concussions within a year, I don't know what that, like, I mean, I hate to say it. Like, is that one of those, like, he's forced to retire because the doctor's like, look, dude, you only got 1 or 2 more concussions and you're done, you know, like, and so that's the tough part about this business, where the mental health, and remember Caleb Evans said this, like, I'm going to step away from social media for my mental health. That's where mental health really kicks in, because you're isolated and you're by yourself and you feel like your career might be over. You make dumb decisions. We've all been there. And so that's why I just hope that's not the case with Caleb Evans. And that was just like a normal dizzy or whatever. Like, whoa, I can't believe I got hit that hard by my own teammate because I wasn't bracing for a hit. I was thinking we're not hitting because we're just going for an interception. So, that was one where it's like, when I look at these DBs even, and I like your question coming up, because these DBs, when you look at it, there's not like, other than Byron Murphy and Caleb Evans, maybe Juwan Williams, and I think maybe Mekhi Blackman, just because of the draft pick status. I don't really feel like any of these guys have it locked down. Like, this is the guy. Like, this guy is one of our guys. This guy has to be on this roster. Like, I don't feel like they have those guys there besides the starters. It's a group of names that you don't know what they're going to put out there and what they could do. Jay Ward as a safety, because of Josh Metellus being able to play in this nickel situation now, might get a corner out of there, because they're like, look, I'd rather have a safety, because I know I got Cam Bynum who can cover in the slot. I got Josh Metellus who can cover in the slot. Do I need a 5th or 6th DB versus a special teams guy? We'll talk about that in the Daily 3. But coming up next, we got to talk about these Gophers, man. Like, the season is upon us. Nebraska. Everybody keeps asking me about this Nebraska game. I have no idea. I have no idea what we're going to see. Stop asking me, people, because I really don't know. But what we are going to talk about is some storylines from Gopher football this offseason heading into this first game that were very interested in following. Maybe not throughout the whole season, but early on in this first 6 games, because this is the unknown season. We've had year 0 of PJ Fleck. This is year unknown of PJ Fleck. But we'll talk about that next, coming up in the second segment. And then we have a word from our sponsors.
Let's talk about FanDuel on this hot, sweltering Tuesday. FanDuel has some hot deals to bet on football right now. FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can make a Super Bowl futures bet on any of the 32 teams. I'm looking at it right now. Bills plus 900, Seahawks plus 3,500, Rams plus 6,500, and there's the Vikings plus 3,500. Lay down that bet before the season and then watch the money pour in. Wait, what? Yes, every time one of those teams win, whoever you choose for that Super Bowl futures bet, when they win a game, you get bonus bets back into your account. So you just sit back, collect the bonus bets, and then put them on whatever you want. You've got spreads, props, futures, money lines, hundreds of ways to wager on FanDuel. Check it out today, FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Peruse all of their great promotions and get paid at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Well, now it's time to talk about some Gopher football, Sam. The Gophers are going to face the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We know that. We're going to have some Gopher guests coming up game week. Next week is a game. No, next week's not game week.
Next week is game week.
Man.
Yes.
This summer went by fast. I'm not going to lie. I thought we had 2 weeks. I was planning like a 2-week countdown to the season, but now we are in 2 weeks right now. Like, this is crazy, Sam. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're going to have some serious stuff to talk about because the Gophers play on Thursday. So I'm going to have to try to get some guests on here. We got to get some more Gopher guests. Try to get Eric Decker. Did talk to Mark Setterstrom yesterday. Talked to Adam Weber. So we'll try to get those guys on to talk a little Gopher football, load up for that week maybe. Maybe just do an everyday guest for Gopher football. We've done a lot of Viking stuff. The Vikings are going to be dead next week because they'll play this week against Arizona Cardinals. Then it's like the dead week. I mean, other than making the roster, we'll talk about the roster when it's formed on the 29th, I think is the day they form it. But we're gonna have to break down this Gopher stuff. And Sam, when you look at Gophers football and just the storylines of what's going on right now in Gophers football, and I love to do it I love real time. So people that are on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing. I'm typing on my computer machine over here, my monitor, to just get some takes from the world right now. Gophers backup QB Cole Kramer has seen a lot at the U. So everybody's talking about Cole Kramer now being a backup. Big time guy to Eden Prairie. You look at Chip Scroggins, talks about TJ Hawkinson and what can Brevin Spann-Ford bring to this team. Gopher safety Darius Green. He's a breakout candidate. Can Ethan Kaligmanis take over this offense? That's from was that ESPN or my computer just jumped. There it is. That was from the Chicago Tribune because they had the Big Ten deal down there. And so they're talking about that. You look at the depth chart, Fox 9 is talking about that. 247 is talking about the biggest strength of this team heading into the season. I want to talk about that one, Sam. The biggest strengths is the storyline for me today. Storyline number 2 for the day, for the week. Biggest strengths of Gopher football. Here's where I go with this, Sam. In the past, it was receivers, it was cornerbacks, it was DBs, it was defensive ends like Assezi, it was linebackers like Jack Gibbons. You had a lot of, you're like, man, these guys are going to be good. You go back to Devondre Campbell days. You go back to the Carter Coughlin days. I don't know about you, Sam, but this feels like a year of, again, the unknown. Like this feels like an unknown group of guys in strength. So the strength, technically on paper, you could say receivers because of the transfer of Corey Crooms coming in. You got Dylan Wright leaving, Micah Brown-Stevens leaving. You still got J.U. Jackson. You got Elijah Spencer who transferred in. You got Chris Altman-Bell. We also had Mikey Brockington who was on our show. But can we truly call those strengths? Like that's not this is a new group of guys coming together. And can we because of what they did where they were, are they going to be this in the Big Ten? We know Chris Altman-Bell can. We know, I think Lemeki Brockington can. And then I go to the safeties. You got Jordan Howden leaving, but you got Tyler Nubin, who's probably going to be maybe a first-round pick if he has a good season, maybe a second-round pick. You got Darius Green is the projected starter next to him in the absence or the leaving of Jordan Howden. Could he be a guy that's going to benefit from the play of Tyler Nubin? My strengths right now, you also have some guys that came in. Craig McDonald, transferred. He's a former Jalen Suggs guy out of what is Jalen Suggs school called? Minnehaha Academy.
Yeah.
He was on that team when Suggs was the quarterback. But he's bounced around. We know Suggs only went to college for 1 year and then went to the NBA, so that's why it feels like it's so long ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But Craig McDonald is transferred to the Gophers. You have Miles Fleming as well, who's leaving. But this is the thing about this team. The strength. If I were to pick my strength, I am going to go with Tyler Nubin. I think that back end of that defense, you got Tyler Nubin over there and you got Justin Wiley at cornerback. I think they are very, very, very set up to have a really good season back there. And then that's why I think the other safety who's projected to start, Darius Green, is like a breakout guy because, one, you have Tyler Nubin who's going to help you out and going to make you look great. You have Justin Wiley, who's not going to get beat too much. Like, he's going to have his side locked down, and then the other side, you got to figure it out. I think that's where the strengths go. I'm going to pick defense of backs over the receivers right now just because they're improving. Crab coming off of an injury, and then they have a quarterback that's young. This might be a team that has to run the ball that we're not expecting to run the ball. But Brevin Spann-Ford, we know is a strength, but I'm going to go with the defensive backs, man. That's the storyline for me, is that the strength of this team, to me, feels like it's going to come from the back end and Tyler Nubin's energy. Offensive line, I haven't dug too deep into it to look at it and see what they have. But, man, it's crazy, Sam. You brought that up. It's next week. I'm thrown off now.
9 days.
Next week, Thursday, so 2 days from tomorrow week, I'm going to be getting up Thursday morning, having breakfast, getting my kids off to school because they'll be in school, and getting ready to go for some Gopher football. Like, and which is crazy, too, though, because I got to pick them up from school. Like, people don't realize that. Like, it's a Thursday. I got to do normal stuff. My wife is the dean of students at the school, so I gotta get the kids home from school. I got to make sure their stuff's ready for practice because my daughter has softball practice on Thursday nights. Both of them actually do. So I don't know how much of this game, depending on what time her practice and games, I don't know how much of this game I'm gonna stay for. I'm gonna definitely watch it, but I'm gonna do the pregame show for sure. I'm gonna stay for the beginning, and then depending on what time my daughter's game is, I might leave out for some softball because my daughters are more important. Not gonna lie, they're way more important than some football. But I'm excited for that, Sam. You threw me for a loop because I was definitely thinking I had 2 weeks before the season. But what strength are you thinking about on this Gophers defense or storyline that's jumped out to you?
Yeah, I still think that this offensive line is pretty good. Ariante Ursary, remember we had Justin Guard on the show last year, and I said, Justin, who are some future NFL prospects that you like on this team? And the first guy he said was Ariante Ursary. They think that he's got big-time, like, future potential, redshirt junior. That's your left tackle. Nathan Bowe was great last year. He's projected, interior line, center maybe. Quinn Carroll, local kid, solid guards. You got a couple questions here. Tyler Cooper, Martez Lewis, assuming that they're starters, and I see that they're projected as such. And I don't know if we know the official lineup yet, but those are your question marks on the offensive line. If one of them can be solid, then you've got 4 out of 5 that you can trust. And then maybe the other one comes along too. I think that could, again, be your identity. And it kind of has to be because you've got a young quarterback. You want to have that solid running game to support Athan. Right. And I think that offensive line is going to be the key. And I still think they have at least 3 really quality bodies in there with Ursary, Bowe, and Carroll. So let's see what they can do again. I know they've lost some big names in the last couple of years. John Michael Schmitz, of course, is gone. Correct. With probably Bowe moving to center, but I still like that group. They've got a good tradition built up there, good culture on that line. So let's see what they can do this year.
Yeah, it's crazy when you say that. You brought up the name John Michael Schmitz and totally forgot about him, that he's in the NFL. Like, you forget sometimes that he's in the NFL because it doesn't feel like, like you don't hear about centers. And when you look at the Giants depth chart, he's the starter. He's the starting center as a rookie for the Giants right now. Like, he's going to have Daniel Jones up his butt in like a couple weeks. So like it's crazy as far as he's already been up his butt, but as far as the first game, that's what's crazy about it with John Michael Schmitz is, PJ Fleck, when you look, I love to see the pictures Gophers players are taking now, like you saw Sezi with Boye Mafe, with the Seahawks, you saw the Giants, you saw Terrell Smith take one with Antoine Winfield and O'Keefe. So you're starting to see a lot of Gophers in the NFL. Carter Coughlin was in that picture as well with the Giants. So you're starting to see, John Michael Schmitz, Carter Coughlin. You're starting to see a lot of Gophers in the NFL. And so when you look at this team, Tyler Nubin is going to be another one out there. Brevin Spann-Ford is going to be another one out there. That's the storyline too. Is like Gophers in the NFL. That's going to be a storyline. Maybe next week we'll have to break down and talk about a little bit of how PJ Fleck has done. Some of these guys were not his guys, though. So let's be real. Like he coached them, but they were not recruited by him. They were recruited by Jerry Kill. So give Kill his credit. He did recruit some NFL guys. You got Devondre Campbell out there, and a lot of those guys like that. So when you think about the storylines, the offensive line, I do like that one because you lose a John Michael Schmidt. Who's going to replace that? Because that's another 6-year guy, a guy that's like you feel like he's been here forever. There's a lot of that leaving now, like the COVID coaches, COVID players starting to weed them out. We're starting to move away from that 6-year, 7-year guy, 8-year guy. We're moving into the Ram, like Chris Altman-Bell, not Tyler Newman, Brevin Spanford. Those guys are kind of the last of the Mohicans. They're going to be the last of a dying breed. Of an era where we're going to look back on 2020 and be like, man, remember when college players used to be able to play for 7 years? Like that's what's great. And you know what? Honestly, like looking at some of these NIL opportunities that like not Minnesota, but like Georgia, I would play for 7 years if I'm going to get, a couple $100,000 in NIL money. Because the NFL is only paying you a couple $100,000, and then you got to pay for your own house and stuff. Like you have an NIL in college and they can pay for you. Speak of the devil, Justin Gard just texted me, so we're gonna have to get him on the show. But it's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it. It's crazy when you think about what's to come, what to look out for, what to be prepared for. But yeah, it's amazing to me when we talk about what the Gophers have to prepare for with these big names, Tanner Morgan, John Michael Schmidt. They're all gone now, man. It's sad almost, Sam. It's sad. Like I thought I'd never see, and I did see, and that, for those out there that are Tanner Morgan fans, I did see Tanner Morgan take a picture as well with the Steelers. I forgot who they were playing, but the Steelers played somebody and they had some Gophers, and Tanner Morgan took a picture with them. Maybe it was the Giants, and Tanner took a picture with them. But yeah, it's crazy when you think about Tanner Morgan and John Michael Schmidt, how long they had been together. And now it's a new era of Gopher football. What's it going to be, though? I mean, that's the thing. Tanner Morgan's legacy didn't run the ball, threw the ball, but never would run on the read option. It was always handed off. He never would keep it because everybody's screaming, keep it. Nobody's guarding you. He kept it like 1 or 2 times, maybe, and he knew that. He would make jokes about it. But maybe Athan's the guy's going to keep it, gonna make this offense even more dynamic, open up holes. Because what people don't understand is when you do that, getting off subject a little bit, when you do that and you pull it, every once in a while, now that DN has to honor you. And now your running back has a clear lane. So that's going to benefit Zach Evans and Jordan Newman if Ethan Kaliakmanis is a threat. When you think about guys like, I'm not going to say Michael Vick. When you think about guys like Josh Allen, you think about guys like who's similar to Aaron Rodgers even. There's some guys that will run, and Aaron Rodgers in his younger days, that would run, and your DN has to honor and keep that edge. Like, I can't crash to the running back because this quarterback could hurt us with his legs. Tanner Morgan was never that guy. DNs like never looked at him. They crash and like, he's not running the ball. Like, where's the running back at? That's where I'm going. But Ethan Kaliakmanis maybe adds a new wrinkle to this team. But yeah, I'm going to go with Tyler Nubin. I like Sam's offensive line strength. We're going to see these first 6 games. I mean, maybe the first 3. But I like 6 because the early, like Eastern Michigan, some of those, I don't know if we'll get a true depiction, but it'll be fun to see them beat up on some guys. Now here's another one, Sam, and we'll talk about this next week. Nebraska doesn't count because they're Big Ten, but the Gophers have had some scary games under PJ Fleck with those non-conferences.
They have.
Like you would think they should blow them out, and then fans are sitting there like, "Oh my goodness, are we really coming down to a field goal against Sister Mary Margaret's children?" So that'll be interesting to see early on, like Eastern Michigan. Do the Gophers dominate, or are we headed for another one of those seasons where it's like up and down, and then when it gets to Iowa, we can't beat Iowa. We beat Wisconsin somehow at the end. That's how it's been the last couple of years. But I feel like if there's any year to beat Iowa, I feel like this is the year. This is the year to beat Iowa, to maybe get Brian Ferentz fired. Like the Gophers could be a reason why Kirk finally gets rid of his son, but probably not. But yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting to see that like early on. Like, how do those non-conference, like, is it a blowout? Which that's what I remember when I played. Like all those teams that were Illinois State and all, it was like 50-7. We did lose a couple. We lost to Toledo. We lost to Ohio University. Not by a lot. It was close. Like it was like 44-40 shootouts because our defense couldn't stop a running nose. But that's what I'm looking forward to is like, can we get some of those games? Like, remember the days, Sam, when Florida State used to get in trouble for that? They would win 77-7. And everybody hated Bobby Bowden and said, you're a jerk.
Yeah.
Steve Spurrier would do that. He put up 65 on somebody, 65-7. And everybody's like, Steve Spurrier's an a-hole. Like, hey, if PJ Fleck's going to be called so many things, let's at least be called that for blowing people out. Like, I don't know, Sam. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to.
The thing about your teams, Ron, you just ran the ball like crazy, right? With those outstanding backs, and then after your era, it was Maroney, it was Barber, and the non-conference teams couldn't stop them.
Yeah,
so they would just run the ball the whole game.
Yeah, Glenn Mason was one of the first coaches, I think, to have multiple back-to-back years of 2,000-yard running backs. Because Ronnie Brown and Calec Williams, that was kind of the first people start bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then around that same time, Marion and Maroney came on the scene and crushed it because Maroney was a freshman. So nobody knew what Maroney could be. But Maroney's freshman year, he did it with Gary Russell, because what people don't remember or realize is Marion Barber got hurt that year. So people always assume Marion and Maroney had so many years together. They didn't. Marion got hurt, and it was actually Terry Jackson who rushed for 1,000 yards with Gary Russell. And then Terry Jackson with Maroney, and then you plugged in Marion with Maroney the next year, and that's when they just absolutely murdered the college football scene. And then Ronnie Brown and Calec Williams were an afterthought. Still first round picks, just like Maroney, NFL picks, just like Marion Barber, like really good guys. But Marion and Maroney just, I think, did it better. And then Glenn Mason continued on. And then, of course, it became a passing team. Like Mason was willing to morph and change. We had Tellis Redmond and Thomas Hamner, and then we switched to a passing game with just Tellis. But yeah, we ran the ball. We did run the ball a ton. We ran the ball 25 to 35 times a game in those games. And then we throw hitches, slants. We kept it simple. We just bullied them and beat them. And we didn't have to get tricky. But it's different now. Like there's different talent going to some of these schools now too, because of social media and the ability to get recruited. So the game has changed. The scope of the game has changed. But speaking of change, it's time to change over to the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. We're going to take a little bit longer on some of these questions and a little bit quicker on some, and you guys can probably figure that one out. But I want you guys to know SiriusXM is a proud partner of Locked On Sports Minnesota. The Twins will visit the Milwaukee Brewers tonight at 7:10 p.m. Catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast on the SXM app. Just search Twins, and also in order to get the app, search SXM in your app market or SiriusXM in your app market, and the SXM app will pop up. Just download it to your device, and then you can get the Twins game right there just by searching Twins. But now it's time for the Daily 3. It's 3 questions. I'll pick the time each. You take it away, Sam.
All right. Anthony Edwards is putting on a show for Team USA on Sunday in an exhibition against Germany. He led them with 34 points, 11 of 20 shooting, big comeback win. Head coach Steve Kerr said he's unquestionably the guy, and you can see he knows it.
Mm-hmm.
So will playing for the national team, Ron, boost Edwards' confidence to take command of the Timberwolves?
I hope so. I did see some blasphemous tweets, like people were saying like he took over a practice, he took over a game, but like in one of the practices, he had like a Michael Jordan type turnaround, and somebody made that like, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, don't put Anthony Edwards and Michael Jordan in the same sentence. Don't do that. Jordan is so iconic that I bought a pair of Jordans last night. I can't remember the last time I bought a pair of Jordans, Sam, but there was a deal and I couldn't pass it up. Nike sent me an email. I had a 20% off thing, and they gave me if I had an account, which I do, the Nike member deal. I got some crossover. I think they're called the 312 Jordans. So I'll have those. I was gonna wear them for the Gopher game, but then I realized they're red, black, and white, which is Nebraska, so I can't do that.
Not gonna work.
Not gonna work. There, I did see some Air Max that were maroon and white, so I was thinking about getting those, but yeah, can't do those. But Anthony Edwards, I think will, because it takes a little bit of time and confidence in order to figure out who you are. And he switched to number 1. That's probably a big help too. But yeah, he did look good. I mean, when you realize you can take over a world stage, it just gives you a little bit more poke your chest out when you get back to with your team. And hopefully Cat and Rudy can defer. That's going to be the problem. Cat wants to be the man too. Like, he wants to be the best big man shooter in the NBA. Here's the thing. Scottie Pippen was one of the best two second person, to Michael Jordan ever. Klay Thompson is one of the best shooters ever with Steph Curry. It's okay to play second fiddle when you're winning. So I hope karl-Anthony Towns can get, because Cat Williams is not a basketball player. He's about 5 feet. But karl-Anthony Towns, I hope he can play second fiddle to Anthony Edwards. And is okay with that, because you still can go 30 and 30. Like, you can still have 30 and 10. You can go 30 points and 10 rebounds as the second guy when you're consistently doing it, having Rudy Gobert play defense for you. But no, I think he can. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that he's taken that leap. I think last year was a little more of a plateau. I think people thought the leap was happening last year, and it was kind of the same as year 2. I think that this year could be the year. And he does look just physically a little more confident, the way he carries himself. It seems like he's added some extra shots into his toolbox.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. I jinxed it. We were going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens preseason streak. They were trying to win their 25th straight preseason football game last night, and they lost on a last-second field goal to Washington. But let's still talk about it. They won 24 preseason games in a row, Ron. Why are the Ravens so dominant in the preseason?
I don't think there's an answer for it. I just think, like, even when I play, we took the Ravens. I think, the building still has ghosts and bones. Like, we took the preseason serious when I played. Like, we didn't want to go to overtime. That was always the thing. Like, if we were down by 7, and we scored a touchdown, we're not kicking an extra point. We're going for 2, because we're either going to win it or lose it. Like Brian Billick, I don't know if that was a Ravens thing or Brian Billick started it, because, I mean, he was, one of the first coaches. And so as you build now too with Harbaugh, maybe that's just something that, because the ownership and the leadership's still there. I don't know, but I know the Ravens do take it serious. Also, their offensive scheme, when you look at who their backup quarterbacks are, I'm working on getting Kevin Glenn on. For those that don't know Kevin Glenn, he's a CFL, like, Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best CFL quarterbacks, played for a very long time. I actually played against him in college. We grew up together. We worked together at Foot Locker when we were like 14. One of my first jobs, my uncle gave me the job, and Kevin Glenn was dating like his niece. So Kevin worked there as well. But we both were high school football players out of Detroit. Kevin went on to Illinois State. We played them in college and actually murdered them. So I can't wait to talk to him about that. But he's a black quarterback, and he never got a shot in the NFL. But he played in Canada for a long time, won some Grey Cups, one of the better players. And Kevin Glenn just kind of tweeted yesterday, or I think on Instagram. That's why I reached out to him about, like, what's going on. The Ravens, this is going to be like the first year, I think they're the first team to do this, is going to have an all black quarterback room, and they have a black quarterbacks coach. You got Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson as their 1, 2, and 3, and then you have their coach. And so when you think about that, like, and then you also have their 4th quarterback, which is Anthony Brown. So that's never happened before, because black quarterbacks weren't seen as smart enough to even be in the NFL. Think about guys like Warren Moon and Randall Cunningham, guys they question, like, oh, can this guy get it done? Warren Moon had to go to the CFL first and then come back and play. Like, nobody believed in him. That's what's crazy about. You got a guy like Damon Allen, who's one of the best Canadian quarterbacks, period, and he couldn't get, into the NFL. And so Tony Dungy, hey, you're not a good quarterback, you're going to play DB in the NFL. Like, I don't know what the stigma has been, but, and that's why I think another part of it, the Ravens just do a good job, I think, of their backups and their starters. And so when they put their 2s in, their 2s are better than some teams' 1s. When you look at the Browns, I mean, honestly, like, it's just what the Ravens have done. They've done a great job in the front office of getting really good guys to play for the money that they need to play for. But I think that's part of it.
I've always thought the Ravens were a really good drafting team, a really good free agency team. Like, I just think they have good depth in that organization, and that certainly helps. And also, remember, under Mike Zimmer, the Vikings had a pretty good preseason record too, and they cared a lot about preseason.
Here's the thing, though. How many Super Bowls have the Ravens won in the last 5 years with all these preseason wins? 5, 6
none.
Yeah. So
no.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Vikings lost every preseason game last year, and they went 13-4. Also didn't matter because they lost the first playoff game. So again,
will Kevin O'Connell ever win a preseason game, Ron?
This might be the one, because the Cardinals are terrible.
Yeah. Yeah,
so this might be less of the Vikings winning a preseason game and the Cardinals losing a preseason game. Like they are awful.
It's not going to be pretty. All right,
I
last
wonder.
one.
I wonder if Gannon, is it Gannon or who's the coach?
Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he's gonna like somehow in pregame be like, trum, trum, trum. I guess I just want to see him do that. I want a reporter to ask him about that. You're explosive. I just want him. I want a reporter to ask him about that. Oh.
Yeah, no, that I think he is talking on Wednesday. We'll have to.
He's here. I keep forgetting that. I don't want to do that. That would be embarrassing to be like, let's go up to him and be like, Coach, you're explosive.
His buddies must give him so much crap for
that.
They
might, you know what? Like, I kind of want you to videotape that of me walking up to him and just doing that and then posting it because I think we would go viral. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like I might get my credentials taken for trying to embarrass a coach.
Might be worth it.
You know what? Though the Vikings wouldn't take it. They would think it's funny too. Explosives.
You're explosive. Andrew Kramer of the Star Tribune has projected Najee Thompson to make the Vikings 53-man roster thanks to his elite punt gunning skills, which were on display on Saturday. Do you agree or disagree with that decision?
Yeah, we talked about this on the fan line. So Andrew Kramer, I'm not going to say he got it from me because he's very particular about his tweets. I remember when I first got on Twitter like 6-7 years ago, when I really got serious about Twitter, maybe even 8 years ago. I have to go back and look at it. Andrew Kramer actually got mad about because I didn't understand Twitter. And so I saw him tweet something. So I just tweeted like, yeah, so-and-so did. He's like, man, you can at least give me credit for the tweet. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I didn't even see your tweet. Like I'm just tweeting exactly what you did, but like it was worded differently, but we both heard and saw the same thing, but he thought I stole his tweet and he got very mad about it. And I had no idea about that. Like he just tweeted like, you can give me credit or retweet my tweet instead of stealing my tweet or something like that. I can't remember how he worded it, but I was like, what? I was like, oh, I didn't know it was this serious on Twitter. Like, I was like, my bad. Like, I was like, I didn't steal your tweet, by the way. I'm like, everybody's saying what it was. And I can't even remember what it was. But what I will say, though, about this for Andrew Kramer, I said it after the game on the fan line. So I don't know when his article came out or his tweet came out, but I said it right after the game on the fan line that Najee Thompson is playing himself in there. I didn't say he was I kind of said he was a lock, but the reason I said he was a lock was more of special teams lock because I talked to Coach Duran after the game, or sorry, before the game when they had the joint practices. And when I was looking through this list, you know, and I kind of had the list with Coach, and I'm like, hey man, like, and it's Durante Jones, sorry, not Durante Jones, that's the DB coach,
Matt Daniels.
Matt Daniels. I've called him Duran for the same thing, and I'm like, because I talked to both, and I talked to Durante Jones too, so I feel bad about that now because I talked to both of them at the same time, like Chris Rump, then Matt Daniels, and then Durante Jones. But anyway, so Matt Daniels and I were talking. And here's where he kind of said, I was like, I was joking about like the guys, the receivers that like hang out with Justin Jefferson and the receivers that are going to come to special teams meetings. And he even said, he's like, look, yeah, KJ Osborne, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison, they're good. They don't need to come to my meetings. If I need to use them, like a kick return, punt return situation with Addison or whatever, I'll get them in there. He said, but other than that, these other receivers all need to be in my meetings. And so I think that's where Najee Thompson is going to set himself up because I think Tristan Jackson is looking really good at a gunner. And I think Najee Thompson is the other gunner. Like, we can talk about Matthew Slater, all these guys, but there's some guys that just get on special teams and they just do a great job and they stay in the NFL as a special teams guy. Marcus Sherrills, like he never played corner. He played every once in a while. He was a special teams guy. He was a great gunner and he was a good punt returner. So don't overlook special teams because that's how you flip the field. That's how you keep a game in control. And that's how you win games sometimes by your special teams play. I think Najee Thompson is up there. And also too, I think it's a little bit of, he's done stuff that these other DBs haven't done, which is catch the eye of everybody. You know, like these other DBs aren't catching everybody's eye. He was even chatty and chippy with the Titans in practice. He was the guy that got into the fight. So, you know, he's definitely a guy that maybe brings energy to the field like a Chris Boyd, but maybe a little bit more under control. And that's looking for. And I'm also looking for Chris Boyd this week. Chris Boyd special teams this week versus Najee Thompson. Oh my goodness. You talk about a guy that wants to tell the Vikings, y'all made a mistake and didn't re-sign me. It's Chris Boyd. He's going to be absolutely on fire. And I cannot wait to watch him and Najee Thompson this week because it might be a fight.
If Najee Thompson makes this team, it is one of the greatest, most unexpected UDFA signings that I've ever seen because his college resume, Ron, is so lackluster. Like, he really didn't even play defense that much. He played a little bit of corner.
Mm-hmm.
He was undersized.
Yep.
His testing at the combine was not good. And they found something in him. And the way he's playing now, I want to know what Kwesi's process was. How did you know that this guy was going to be so good at special teams? Because nothing on paper suggests that.
Right.
And here he is. He's doing great, and he might make the roster. So it would be incredible. And he comes from a small school, Georgia Southern.
Right.
So nothing about him screamed prospect, to me at least. And the Vikings found him. I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I have no idea either. I thought the same thing. Like when I started seeing him last week flash during practice, because we all saw it at the joint practices. He was making plays. He was getting loud. He was having fun. He was a part of the reason why I think Andrew Booth threw the ball. Like it had all culminated from everything that happened all day, like their fight, Najee's fight with the Titans special teams guy. That's one of those things where, yeah, like who knows what Kwesi saw in him, but clearly it's a diamond in the rough. It's one of those decisions you bring a guy in and then who knows? He goes out and has a great rookie season as a gunner and just shows everybody, like, man, like this guy's really good. And then maybe, and there's the thing, if you're going to make $500,000 just to run down and stop a guy from getting 1 yard on a punt, why not go balls to the wall? And that's what he does. He goes full go nonstop. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. This was a beautiful Tuesday. Looking forward. We're going to have a surprise guest. Not sure. It might just be us, but I know Justin Guard could be an option. Kevin Glenn could be an option. Talk to Robert Tate, who was an Arizona Cardinal and a Minnesota Viking. So there's joint practices. Maybe get Robert Tate on tomorrow. But please tune in for the Ron Johnson Show tomorrow. It's our last one before the preseason game as far as the Ron Johnson Show goes. And then the next week, we're into actual Gopher football games. So we're going to line up some Gophers guys as well next week. But again, I'm Ron Johnson and Sam Ekstrom. I want everybody to know, please continue to like, download, share, subscribe. Tell us anything you would like to talk about as well. You can comment on our Instagram, Reels. You can comment on the tweets as well when we tweet the link. But YouTube, you can find us, Amazon Fire and Roku, also Sirius XM. Well, I'm Ron Johnson. Again, that's Sam Ekstrom. And thank you guys and have a great day.